Hello, welcome to COM 108, Communications and Social Interaction. Today we will be discussing interviewing skills. So, let's start with when does the interview actually begin? It begins the minute you are contacted for the interview, whether it is through a phone call or an email. Make sure you write down the details you will need: the day and time of the interview, the location, the person or persons you will be meeting with, and if you need to bring anything with you, such as a certification, a license, especially if you're a practical nurse, or if you have a certification in IT, if you need to bring a copy of your resume, anything in those lines. If you miss any of this information and you have to call back, you're going to make a bad impression before they even meet you. And the reality is that if you do miss this information, what it's going to demonstrate is that you are not detail-oriented, you're not organized, and you are not the kind of person that they may want to hire. And again, you could be the most awesome person in the world, but a bad first impression might be the last impression you can make. So, what do you wear? You should dress professionally for your interview, even if the job will require a uniform such as scrubs or the position has a casual dress code. A lot of people who work in information technology wear khakis and a polo shirt, like Jake from State Farm. But the best you will ever look is at your interview. Remember, how the interviewer perceives you is their reality. So, that first impression, that is the best you will ever look at your job. They know it, you know it, and that is the first impression you want to make. So, what should a man wear? A suit jacket with matching pants, blue, black, or a gray color. If you don't have a suit, get a dark colored pants and a matching jacket of some sort, and kind of put together a little casual but professional looking outfit. Shirt and tie, loafers or lace-up shoes that are polished, no scuff marks, socks that match your pants or your shoes. Don't walk in wearing black pants and white socks. It looks ridiculous. A belt that matches your shoes. And again, gentlemen, there are certain fashion rules that you may not have been aware of, but that is a big one. Here's some big no-nos. Do not walk in filled with wrinkles or stains on your tie. Buy or borrow an iron. If you don't have a lot of money to work with, go to thrift stores, go to Goodwill. Ties and suits, as soon as a man retires, he gets rid of that stuff and it goes right to Goodwill. Also, as soon as a man gains a little weight, some baby weight, his wife has a baby, they don't go out, he gains 20 pounds, that stuff goes to Goodwill. So go out and buy yourself something. Invest. You will need it eventually. No sneakers, no sandals, no flip-flops. Ladies, what should you wear? Women have slightly more color options, but you should also present yourselves as professionally as possible. So in other words, no gold glitter tube tops. If you wear a skirt or a dress, the hemline should not be higher than your knee. I know some fashion you'll see goes right up to the top of your thigh, but for a professional position, you want to make sure kneecap is all they get. Neutral colors are best, but a splash of color is appropriate. So a beige outfit with a nice splash of peach or turquoise, not a bad thing. Whatever color happens to be in fashion that season. Pantyhose should be flawless, meaning no runs, and if you are the kind of person who can't wear pantyhose for more than 10 minutes without getting a run in them, put an extra pair in your pocketbook. Wear low-heeled shoes. Wearing 3-inch spiked heels on an interview can be disastrous. unless you're totally used to wearing high heels. If you are not, a 1-inch kitten heel or just a regular flat shoe is a way better bet. If you're wearing pants, make sure the pants are properly hemmed. Nothing is more ridiculous than 3 inches of extra fabric running along the end of your shoe line. Wearing makeup, make sure it's minimal. Same thing with your hair. Do not have some exotic hairstyle. Make sure it's simple. Do not over-accessorize. You don't want to look like a gypsy, and nothing against gypsies, but that's not the job you're going for. So, for men and women, keep jewelry to a minimum, 1 or 2 rings per hand. A wedding ring is a great accessory because it demonstrates that you are in a stable relationship. Even if the marriage is on the rocks, they don't know that. The wedding ring also for men demonstrates that you're not going out partying all the time. And for ladies, it shows that, you've settled down and you're not looking for a future husband and whatever sexist stuff they may think. Wristwatches are great accessories. Even in this era of cell phones where we can look at our phone to look at the time, a wristwatch is seen as somebody who is focused on timeliness. Earrings should be subtle. No giant hoops. No huge diamonds. No chandelier-style earrings. Remove your facial piercings and replace with clear plastic plugs. As you tour around the facility, you may notice people wearing facial piercings, and then you get the idea that they're okay. If, on the other hand, you walk around and you see nobody with facial piercings, then you understand that either you will have to get rid of the facial piercings, or if you're offered the job, not take it because the facial piercings are more important to you. Cover visible tattoos on your face, hands, and neck. Again, as you tour the facility, you can determine whether or not those are socially acceptable at this facility or not. Either wear no scent or a light scent. Some people, especially, in allergy season, are very susceptible to a lot of perfumes, and you don't want your interviewer having an allergy attack in the middle of your interview. So go light. But wear deodorant. You may like your funk, nobody else does. Make sure your hair is clean and neat. Men, if you have facial hair, make sure you trim and shape it as if you were going to your own wedding. Nails should be clean and trimmed. People who have manicures need to make sure they have no chips. And again, you don't want to go real crazy with the colors. You don't want to go zebra style on your nails. Go with something very subtle. A nice French manicure, or, a clear coat for gentlemen if you're going to do the manicure. Ladies, a pink, a pastel, or if you're going to go with something a little more vibrant, like just a straight color. Don't go all kinds of crazy decorations because, again, you don't know what the culture is at this company. And you should never have the dagger-shaped nails at an interview. Those are real popular right around now. And I just can't imagine walking in and looking like you can pluck somebody's eyeball out. Also, do not chew gum during your interview. It is something that is super annoying to those of us who interview people, and we want you to not look like you are chewing your cud. Chew a mint before the interview to ensure fresh, minty breath. Smokers, you got to be careful here. Many companies are reluctant to hire smokers these days because they tend to take more breaks and more sick days because they tend to get more respiratory infections. And a lot of companies also understand that smokers tend to have higher insurance rates costs, so they are reluctant to go in that direction. So, The other thing is, especially for our healthcare students, a lot of healthcare facilities like the University of Pennsylvania in our fair city have gone smoke-free, meaning there is nowhere to smoke anywhere on their property. If you go to the University of Pennsylvania Hospital, you'll see the employees running across the street to where the food trucks are so they can smoke a cigarette, huddled together in the cold. It's a little funny. I mean, it's funny. I don't smoke, but I'm sure it's not funny for them. You should especially avoid smoking in your car before the interview because the smoke sticks to your clothes. And non-smokers are very sensitive to the smell of cigarette smoke. So you want to make sure that if you do smoke, put your interview clothes on, and that's it till after the interview. So, what should you carry? First, the rule is carry as little as possible. You don't want to look like you're moving in. The best option is a portfolio, which is what this little black carry-all thing is. It'll allow you to carry a copy of your resume, your cover letter, and a list of references, as well as a pad of paper to take notes with. Women, bring the smallest purse you can possibly bring to carry your essentials. Your keys, make sure your phone is turned off. You two gentlemen, turn off your phone. Nobody wants to hear your, whatever ringtone you have that week. Your wallet and your lip balm or lip gloss, lipstick, whatever essential makeup you may need to carry with you. The key here is you don't want to look like you're fumbling looking for places to put things when you walk into the office. You want to be able to put your purse down, sit down, open your portfolio, and be ready to go. If it is cold outside, wear a simple coat that is easy to hold over your arm after you get inside the building. Put your gloves in your pocket and the scarf in the arm of the coat. Fold it over your arm and then check in with the receptionist. You do not want to be fumbling with this stuff when you are trying to meet the person who may be hiring you, because you don't want to look awkward and funny and weird trying to get all this stuff organized. Also, when you get into the office where you will be interviewed, lay your jacket or your coat over the back of the chair because you've already got it all organized and you can just fold it over. Okay, so when you meet the interviewer, you're going to do the handshake. The handshake is that nonverbal communication that creates the first impression of who you are as a person. So, some of the do's and do nots. You want a firm grip, not a fishy grip. Fishy grip feels like you are shaking hands with a dead fish, literally. Grip the whole hand, not just the fingertips. The fingertips, it makes you feel like they're going to kiss your hand if you're a woman. Make sure your hand is dry as opposed to sweaty and slippery. And this is an easy trick. As you bring your hand up to shake the hand, just run it along either your pants or your skirt to make sure that if you are sweaty and nervous, which most of us are, you give it a quick dry as you go up to meet their hand. Have a confident grip, not a bone-crushing grip. This is not a contest to see which of you is the more powerful Viking in the room. This is I'm glad to meet you, and I'm a strong person, but I'm not out to pillage your village. Shake up and down once or twice. Do not, however, shake up and down repeatedly until the interviewer calls security. You don't want to come off as insane. Most importantly, make eye contact. Do not stare ominously at the wall behind the interviewer. Do not stare at the ground. Do not stare anywhere. Just smile and make eye contact at the interviewer. Don't have a weird smile either. Don't look angry and don't look like you're in pain. Remember, practice a smile that you're comfortable with in the mirror. Once you get that smile down, then you can whip it out whenever you're in a professional setting. Be mindful of your body language. The worst job interview body language errors include lack of eye contact. It's just weird in the United States if people don't meet your eye. And again, I know a lot of people from other cultures do not engage in eye contact. However, in the United States, that is the cultural norm. And as such, if you are looking for a job in this country, you need to assimilate to the cultural norm. If you don't smile, that is, again, another cultural norm. If you smile, it shows you're a friendly, approachable person. If you fidget too much, it is very distracting. Bad posture, like our friend here on the right-hand side, it looks like he had a little bit of a rough night. Again, that shows somebody who's lackadaisical and doesn't have the respect to sit up. The weak handshake, crossing your arms over your chest in a defensive posture. Playing with your hair. Women do this a lot. We do it when we flirt, and we do it when we're nervous. We don't want to do this in an interview because, again, this is a tell that tells the interviewer that we are excessively nervous. Men do it also when they're nervous. And I've seen many guys literally going through their hair like they're hoping to find the missing gold from the Incas. So keep your hands away from your head. Touching your face excessively. And again, gentlemen, with your facial hair, you want to make sure you're not pulling the hairs on your beard. You don't want to be constantly stroking your chin. These are all weird little facial body tics that are just distracting. Using too many hand gestures. Not necessarily giving the interviewer the bird, but just going excessively overboard with hand gestures. You need to kind of rein it back in and mirror how the interviewer is using their body language. So, the next part of this presentation will look at the 12 most popular interview questions, which are these glorious questions here, and we're going to go through each one by one. So the first question, oftentimes as soon as you sit down, is tell me about yourself. And this is that moment of, oh my God, where am I going to start? Do I start where I was born, a poor child in the middle of some desert in Arizona? No, nobody cares about that. The interviewer doesn't care if you have a deep-seated anxiety about cats or cabbage, or if your dad was mean to you growing up. Instead, they want a 2 or 3 minute summary of who you are professionally. That's what they care about. So you start with school, move on to the jobs, and reference anything that relates to your professional goals, such as volunteer activities. So, for example, let's say you are talking about why you became a nurse or your interest in nursing. You could say, my mom was a nurse and I watched her help people, and one night we were at a restaurant and she helped this guy who was having a heart attack before the ambulance arrived, and at that moment I knew I wanted to be a nurse. So I applied to nursing school. I got my license. I've been working as a nurse for 10 years. I have been moving into different kinds of nursing. I'm really interested in pediatric nursing, and which is why I would like to pursue this particular job. The point here is you're creating a narrative about who you are. You are telling them the story of you. Now, do not mention your age. It is not their business. You may be too young or too old. It is not their business to know exactly how old you are. It's one of the reasons that you shouldn't put your high school graduation date on your resume if you've already gone to college or are attending college, because it specifically dates you. Don't mention your religion. Again, some people are prejudiced, are biased, and maybe they don't like Catholics, Jews, Muslims, Baptists, Presbyterians, Episcopalians, atheists, whatever. Don't mention if you have children. Don't mention how many children you have. Sadly, a lot of employers think of children as a negative because when they are sick, what happens? You have to take a sick day to stay home with them. So again, those are comments that you don't need to talk about. Don't discuss if you're married. Obviously, if you have a wedding ring on, they're going to assume you're married. Also, if you are chronically ill, if you have asthma or diabetes, don't share that with them. Your personal life is your business. It is not their business. And these questions are all illegal. However, employers ask them all the time. And my best suggestion to how to handle these things, and I've been asked these questions, how many kids, do you have kids? And I say, well, my cats are worse than any kids. They make a worse mess and they eat more than any kids could ever eat. Now, I'm not going to talk about the two, mooses that are sitting on the couch watching TV and eating all my food because it's not relevant to the employer. It is only relevant to me, and it's not a legal question. So you have to decide how you want to answer that. But I'd like to defer those questions with humor because the reality is they know they're asking an illegal question. Another question that you need to be 100% prepared for is, what are your strongest skills? And this is where the job posting comes in handy. If they are looking for someone who is organized, has excellent interpersonal skills, and is a great team player, you should mention at least two of those skills as being things you are really good at, presuming, of course, that you are, in fact, good at those things. Don't lie, because if you get the job and you are a terrible team player and you are terrible at organization, you're not going to keep the job. Alternatively, you should be able to easily come up with 3 skills that you can discuss. And this is why it's important to prepare for interviews. You need to be able to come up with this information as if it is your birthday. You know your birthday like the sun will come up tomorrow. One of the tricky things interviewers like to do is ask for examples of how you excel at a particular skill. So again, what you need to do is respond with examples. So if somebody says you have great organizational skills, you want to have an example of how you were able to organize something and made an entire system way better because you organized it so well. Here's a very specific thing that you need to think about. If you're going for a job as a nurse, what are the characteristics of a great nurse? Empathetic, calm under pressure, and analytical. That's what you have to think about. What are the characteristics of a great, whatever your job is? Accountant, engineer, programmer, whatever the job is. And those are the skill sets that you really need to work on for yourself so that you can demonstrate to an employer that these are the things you are really good at. One of the big questions that you're often asked is, why did you leave your last job? Well, for some people, this is either really easy or really hard. And we're going to address how to answer, if you got fired in a later slide, so stand by for that one. If you were laid off due to budget or staff cuts, say it. It's fairly common and there's no negative implication in that. Lots of people have been laid off, especially in the last 10 years. Everybody's been there. No one's going to count that against you. If you left your previous job because you finished college and now you want a job in the field you studied, that is also a great answer. And since most of you who are watching this probably are college students, then, that's your answer. I went to school for nursing. I've been working at Wawa for 5 years. I'm ready to go into nursing. That is the perfect answer. If you are already working in the field, explain that the job you left or currently are in the process of leaving has limited prospects for growth. So you are looking for a job with more opportunities. So, what you're basically saying is, listen, the job I have is a nowhere job. I need to go somewhere else to move up in my world. People respect that. They understand that. Don't bash your old boss. Don't say the job is terrible. Don't say anything bad about the previous job, because you never know who knows who. It's a small world and everybody knows somebody. You always want to be positive. You don't want to burn any bridges. Even if you want to set fire to your old boss's car and you dream about it, you fantasize about it, you still shouldn't do it, and you definitely shouldn't talk doing it to someone who is interviewing you. So, give an example of outstanding customer service. Companies compete on customer service, especially in the United States. We are a service industry. So whether it is IT, healthcare, or business, interviewers want to make sure that you are the type of employee who will work well with their customers. And you need to figure out a true story that will demonstrate how you went the extra mile for a customer or client. It needs to emphasize your communication skills and/or your ability to troubleshoot a problem. Now, you'll notice that the word true is in the quote-unquote marks. And what that means is, listen, none of us are perfect. And in retrospect, we could have all done a better job handling a situation. That's the story we want to tell, because we want to give the best possible version of the customer service we would have given had we been smarter at that particular time. So, and this is a true story. A friend of mine worked in human resources at a large bank in Wilmington, and she told me this story. She asked this precise question to this young girl, and she said that she used to work at a large grocery chain. We won't tell you the name. And she said, and I quote, some foreign guy came in and wanted happy birthday written on a cake with some name. And she couldn't understand what he said, so she made him come around and write the name on the cake himself. That is a horrible, horrible customer service story, which of course she thought was a great story. Now, you could fix that story by having him write the name on a piece of paper, so then she could write the name on the cake. Again, hindsight 2020. We can all do things better. Give it the best possible spin, and then you'll have an outstanding customer service story. Another good question they like to ask is, what would your coworkers say about you? Asking what your previous boss would say about you is easy, because, your boss is going to say you were a hard worker and that you were very reliable and that you were motivated, blah, blah, blah. But asking about what the coworkers would say is a bit more challenging. You want to focus on teamwork ideas. Being supportive, cooperative, collaborative, helpful, flexible, efficient, a good communicator, calm, loyal, dependable. Learn these adjectives. You are never going to be so happy that you have a grasp of adjectives during interviews until you are in this interview sweating bullets under your shirt, but knowing that you have these words in your head. Now, this is the classic trick question. What is your weakness? If you are too honest and answer that you are always late or you like to get drunk at lunch, you will not get hired. Guaranteed. The interviewer wants to see if you have a level of self-awareness and if you understand that you have to work on improving your skills. If you say you have no weaknesses, that means you're perfect. And as far as I know, there's very, very few perfect people in the world. Now, here are some good examples that you can use during an interview. For someone who is young and just out of college, I don't have a lot of experience yet. Well, how do you fix this? The way to fix this is to get hired and get experience. So that's an easy answer. Another one, you're not comfortable with public speaking, which is, in fact, the most popular fear in corporate America and personal America. It's just the most popular fear in America. This is something almost everyone can relate to. If you want to be a little more specific, you could say you're too direct with your feedback, meaning you have to learn to soften your criticism, but it shows you're honest. And you have to also emphasize that you're learning and working to improve your skills. That's the important thing. You have to emphasize and stress that you are working to improve your weakness. In today's work environment, it is changing so rapidly, and interviewers want to make sure that you are not just going home and playing 6 hours of Call of Duty every night. They want to make sure you're staying current with the changes in the industry. So they want to make sure that you are doing something on your dime and your time to make sure you are staying up to date. And this is especially true in healthcare, IT, and engineering. They will ask you, how do you stay up to date? And some good options are naming some specific websites. ScienceDaily.com is great for anyone in the healthcare, social sciences, engineering, all of those fields. CNET is for IT people, it's almost become the news source for all IT business. And then ASME.org is for engineers, what CNET is for IT people. Specific magazines and journals, and know the names. If you go in and say, I use Google, you're going to sound like an idiot. And if you say, I read Time magazine, you're going to sound like an idiot. So for example, on the right-hand side there's the Journal of Clinical Nursing. There's all kinds of journals out there. Take advantage before you go into the interview of looking up some of this stuff. And even if you say you go and use a site like ScienceDaily.com, bring up an article you read in the last few days. This stuff is fascinating, first of all, if you're in the field. Even if you're not in the field, a lot of this stuff is super interesting. But it also demonstrates that you love what you study and what you do. Also, you have to often attend continuing education classes and seminars. Teachers do it, nurses do it, IT people do it, engineer people do it, everybody does it. There you go. So, but the point I'm making is that, we don't just go to school for however many years and that's it. We've learned everything we need to learn. We have to constantly honing our skills, learning the new stuff. The internet was publicly available in 1995, which meant that everybody who finished college before 1995 had to learn how to use the internet. And boy, let me tell you, it was something that all of us dived into with gusto because it was so cool. And, that's the way things go. You have to learn this stuff. How do you deal with conflict? It is inevitable, whether it's at home or your professional life. Managers want to know that you know how to handle conflict. Rule number 1, they want you to handle it first in a calm, professional way. They are not your mommy or your daddy. They don't want to have to solve all your problems. Only if it doesn't work when you're trying to manage it, then you reported it to your supervisor. Indicate that you haven't had to deal with much conflict in the past, because most of us are pretty laid back And most of us probably haven't had to deal with a lot of conflict. They may even ask you to give an example of how you managed a situation in the past. Now, if you have had a lot of conflict in the past, you have to ask yourself, do you have a problem? Because, again, as I said, most of us, we go to work, we do our jobs, we have a nice day, we go home to our families, we have dinner, we watch a little TV, and we go to bed. We're not fighting all the time. If you're fighting all the time, it might be your problem. You need to deal with that. The golden mean is recommended to solve conflict. Compromise so everyone can agree to a decision. That's the base idea of working in a group. Another question that gets asked is what motivates you? Now, obviously, none of us would probably get up and go to work every day unless we were being paid. But that is not really the answer they're looking for. So before we get into what motivates us, I want to identify two types of motivation. There are extrinsic motivators, behavior that is driven by external rewards such as money, fame, grades, public praise, and intrinsic motivation, the pleasure one gets from the task itself or the sense of satisfaction in completing or even working on a task. So, for example, a great answer for a healthcare worker would be working with patients and seeing them get better makes you feel like you've accomplished something significant. Many people are motivated by intrinsic ideas because that is a much deeper feeling of motivation than just, getting an A. I mean, getting an A is awesome, and we all want people to get A's, but they're transitory. And in 10 years from now, you may not even remember what grade you got in any of your classes. But feeling like you've helped someone, feeling like you've made someone's life better, feeling like you made a difference is something that really intrinsically changes who we are as a person. Now, there is a caveat. If you are going into sales, any kind of business sales, you should be motivated by making the sale or making the money. What is a salesperson? They are the person who is going to get the money from you to make the sale. So of course that's what should motivate you. Okay, so here's the hard question. Have you ever been fired from a job? There are lots of people fired from jobs. Approximately 20 million people a year are fired from jobs, which comes to about 1.5% of the population, and that includes babies and old people. So when you look at it, everybody's been fired at some point. Most people. There's a few who, stayed at their own job or have their own business, so of course you can't fire yourself. So here's how to handle it. Be honest, but also make sure you're putting it in perspective as a learning experience. You learned from the experience. You also want to share the facts, but don't share your feelings. And keep in mind these things. 1, an employee is not always a good match for a job. 2, a good employee is not always a good match for the environment. You can be a great employee and you work in an environment where everybody is really into going out after work and partying and hanging out, and that's not really who you are. Then there are sometimes good employees who are not a good match for a management style. If you're somebody who works really well with a manager who is going to give you specific instructions and give you specific deadlines, and your new boss is more kind of loosey-goosey, that's not going to work well. And again, as I said earlier, do not bash your old boss. It's a small world, as Walt Disney reminds us, so you never know who knows who. So if you're talking about your old boss, Joe Smith, and what a jerk he was, your interviewer might say, "Oh, Joe Smith, who works at XYZ company, he's my cousin." And then you've just messed up the interview. You want to make sure that you stay as positive as possible And again, being terminated from a job is a learning experience. One of the other questions you will often be asked is, why are you interested in working here? Employers want to know if you've done any research on their company. Why? Who cares? Well, first, it shows that you have a level of interest in them. Second, it demonstrates that you have basic research skills. I mean, if you say you're a good researcher and you haven't done any research, what does that say? And it allows them to see what you already know about the company. And here's the reality. If you know nothing about the company in the era of the internet, that means you lack even the most rudimentary skills, and you should relegate yourself to picking up passengers in your horse and buggy, kind of like an Amish Uber group. The point I'm making here is they want to make sure that you are not some lump who is going to show up and expect to be spoon-fed everything. Here is one of the great questions that is going to give you a springboard on how to sell yourself. Why are you the best candidate for this job? And this question is really asking you this: what separates you from the other 7 people I am interviewing for this position? What makes you different? What makes you special? This is the best opportunity to sell yourself. So, you have to think about the job, you have to think about the position, and you have to think again about what are the qualities of somebody in this position that are the best qualities. So you want to, if you're healthcare, communication, healthcare skills, staying calm under pressure. If you're looking for a job in computer programming, you want to think about things like programming tools, your creativity, your ability to stay on schedule, which is really funny because programmers are always behind schedule. But at least it will demonstrate that you have an understanding of the system and the processes involved in the job. At the end of the interview, the person interviewing you will ask you if you have any questions for them. And if you say no, that means that you are a giant lump on the log. You have to say yes. They just spent a bunch of time asking you questions, so now you need to ask them questions. It's like going on a date and never saying a word. It's ridiculous. So, you bring a generic list in that little portfolio I told you about, and if you want to get super fancy, ask questions specific to the company, and then there's where that research comes in. So here's some good questions to ask. Is this a new position or am I replacing someone? Because again, if it's a new position, you might be creating a lot of the new processes. Or if you're replacing someone, you're going to be learning the processes that somebody else created. What do you like best about working here? That's going to give you some context on what are the benefits of working in a place such as where you're interviewing. What will the top priorities for the person who is hired for the next few months? Meaning, what should I be focused on if I get hired here? What is the typical day for someone in this position like? So just to get a general idea, I come in at 8, I do this, I do that, I check patients, I program, I meet with the boss, I go to lunch, just a general idea. How long do people typically stay at this company? That's a great question because that's going to tell you if people are happy. If they say, most people only stay 2 or 3 years, that means that everybody hates working there. They get out. If people stay 10, 20 years, they love it there. They don't want to leave. They really like it. So again, it gives you some insight. When do you expect to make a hiring decision? That's a great question because some people will interview 3 months before they plan to make a decision. Some people interview 2 weeks before they plan to make a decision, and some people interview because they need to make a decision the next day. So getting a timeline is going to be very important for you, especially with follow-up. Lastly, you can ask, are there opportunities for growth at this company? Do you promote from within? Some companies only promote from within or try to only promote from within. Other companies, they like to bring in people from the outside, inject new blood. And the answers you get are going to help you decide if company is going to be a good opportunity for you. If you're brand new, freshly minted college graduate, you probably are going to take what's offered. But once you get some more experience, you may get 2 or 3 different offers, and you will have an opportunity then to make a decision based on the pros and cons of what you learned during the interview. So, it's the end of the interview. You may be introduced to several people, but make sure you get the business card of the person or persons who interviewed you. Thank the person for the interview, shake their hand, maintaining eye contact and smiling. Remember, you want to come across as trustworthy, as approachable, and friendly. When you get home, you're going to send a thank you email, which is why you need the business card, because the email address is on there. We're going to talk about thank you emails in a next presentation, so stay tuned for more of that. If you have any questions or need more information, please email or text message me, and I hope you have a fabulous day.